Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle a really weird question. How do you argue against a good idea? I know, it sounds kind of backward, right? But it's actually a huge part of critical thinking, and it's basically the heart and soul of competitive debate.
No, seriously, think about it. You hear an idea that everyone loves, and it just seems perfect. What's there to even argue about? Your first instinct is just to nod and agree. But, we live in a super complex world, and sometimes the best ideas can have, unexpected side effects. So, let's take an example for this explainer. Picture this, a plan to cut university tuition by 10%. I mean, come on, who's going to argue with that? More people can afford school, less student debt, it's a total win-win. Or is it? See, a great argument isn't just about cheering for the good stuff. It's about really stress testing an idea, to see what might be hiding in the shadows.
All right, let's get into it. The power of refutation. To really get how you can argue against a seemingly great idea, we got to talk about this thing called refutation. This is the #1 job for the team that has to argue against our tuition plan. In debate, we call them the negative team.
So, refutation? It's way more than just shouting nope. It's more like being a detective. You take your opponent's case, you put it under a microscope, and you show everyone exactly where the cracks are. Maybe their evidence is shaky, or their logic just doesn't add up. Your job is to prove they've missed something big. And for the negative team, this isn't just a strategy, it's their main responsibility.
You could say it's the nope, and here's why part of any good argument. And what's so cool about this is that it's what makes a debate. I mean, without it, you just have two people talking at each other. Refutation forces a real clash of ideas, and that's how we actually figure things out and make smarter choices. It's all about not taking things at face value.
So the negative's job, think of them as the quality control department for a new idea. They have to put everything the other team, the affirmative, says to the test. They're asking, does this plan really fix the problem? Is the problem even that big of a deal? And the big one, are there hidden costs or trade-offs that nobody's talking about? They're there to poke holes and see if the whole thing floats.
So now we get to the disadvantage, the hidden story. To uncover those trade-offs, the negative team needs a really specific and powerful tool. They can't just stand up and say, I don't know, this just feels like a bad idea. No, they have to build a solid, logical case, a story really, that shows how this awesome plan could actually go horribly wrong.
And that tool in the debate world has a name, the disadvantage. We just call it a DA for short. So while the affirmative team is talking up all the great things their plan does, the advantages, the negative team's main weapon is the disadvantage. It's their big story about why the plan, even with the best intentions, is actually a really, really bad idea.
And you should really think of it like a story. Every DA tells a story of how a plan, even with its good intentions, ends up making something bad happen. It's a cause and effect chain that kicks off with that 10% tuition cut and ends somewhere truly terrible. The whole point is to tell that story so well that it completely overshadows all the good stuff the other team is promising.
Okay, so let's build our first disad. We're going to apply this to our tuition cut plan. Let's see if we can actually build a disadvantage against something that sounds so good. It might seem kind of impossible, but you'll see, with the right structure, it all comes together.
So, a good disadvantage has 3 basic parts. You've got the link, the internal link, and the impact. Think of it like a chain. The link is what connects the plan to some kind of change. The internal link is the series of dominoes that starts to fall because of that change. And the impact, well, that's the big bad outcome at the end. If you can break any single piece of that chain, the whole argument just collapses.
First up, the link. Our plan to cut tuition by 10%, well, it's not free, right? It's super expensive and it's going to require a ton of new government spending. That's our link. Simple. The plan costs money. That's a change. It's pretty direct, and honestly, it's tough to argue with that.
Next, the internal link. This is the chain reaction. So where does all that cash come from? The government can't just hit print. They have to make tough choices. And the story we're telling here is that when politicians are looking for billions of dollars, they're probably not going to cut something super popular. Instead, they'll go after a budget with weaker political defenders. Something like, say, the National Climate Research Budget. And boom, there's our trade-off. To pay for tuition today, we raid the budget for saving the planet tomorrow.
And that brings us to the impact, the final terrible outcome. What happens when you gut climate research? Well, innovation in green tech, it just grinds to a halt. All that work on solar, wind, carbon capture, it stalls. And suddenly, our fight against climate change is seriously kneecapped. We're talking worse storms, rising seas, basically a global disaster. So there's our story. The tuition cut leads to a budget cut, which leads to a climate catastrophe. So yeah, a plan can lead to a chain reaction of causes and effects that causes disastrous changes completely unrelated to the original action. And that's the whole magic trick, right? We started with a simple, good idea, cheaper college, and we ended with accelerating climate change. The disadvantage just exposed this totally unexpected, disastrous consequence. It's a pretty powerful story. Okay, now for the inevitable clash. But wait, it's not over yet. Not even close. This is where the real fun begins. The negative team just told their big, scary story, so now it's the affirmative team's turn to fight back and try to tear it down. They get to refute the refutation.
And they have a bunch of ways to do this. They can attack any part of that chain we just built. They could argue, no link. Hey, we can pay for this without touching the climate budget. Or they could say it's not unique. Come on, that budget was going to get cut anyway with or without our plan. Or, and this is a really slick move, they could do what's called a link turn and argue that their plan actually helps prevent climate change. Like, more college grads means more scientists inventing green tech. See? They flip the whole thing on its head.
This is the huge question, right? You've got the affirmative promising something definitely good, lower tuition for millions of people. And then you have the negative warning about a potential disaster, climate change getting worse. How in the world do you weigh those against each other?
Well, there's actually a system for this, and it's called impact calculus. It's how you weigh the outcomes. Debaters basically compare three things. First is magnitude. How big is the problem? Helping millions of students is big, for sure, but affecting the entire planet? That's way bigger. Then there's probability. How likely is it to happen? The tuition cut is a sure thing, 100%. But that whole chain reaction leading to disaster? Maybe less certain. And finally, time frame. When does it happen? The tuition cut helps people right now. The climate harm is way down the road. So a judge has to juggle all of that to figure out which side wins. All right, let's talk about thinking in disadvantages. Why should you care about any of this if you're not in a debate club? I mean, you're probably not going to bust out impact calculus in your next team meeting, but trust me, the skill underneath all this is so valuable. Because this whole framework, it's not just for debaters. It's a mental model for making better decisions in real life. When you learn to think in disadvantages, you're really learning to think about what happens next and what happens after that. It's about seeing that every decision has trade-offs. And it's not about being a downer or being negative all the time. It's about being a realist and making plans that are actually built to succeed. So, what should you take away from all this? It's pretty simple, really. The next time you hear some big, exciting new idea, just take a beat. Instead of just getting swept up in the good vibes, ask a few questions. What's the first thing this will change? What dominoes might fall because of that? And what's the worst-case scenario down the road? Asking those internal link, impact questions is how you start to see what's really going on. So, I'll leave you with this question. What's the hidden disadvantage of your next great idea? Seriously, thinking this way about your own plans is one of the best things you can do. If you can find the potential problems before anyone else does, you can fix them. And that is how you turn a good idea into an idea that's truly great.